Hello and welcome, I'm Min Kobayashi, and this is my channel. If you are new here, I tend to talk a lot about fantasy and classic books, and I like to think that I can write books as well, and I am just pretty obsessed with books, which you would think of if, I'm a booktuber. We're gonna have a good old-fashioned, non-scripted video about the books I read in December. Yeah. See, I normally write down my general thoughts about them before so that I'm not quite as rambly, but I figured it's late at night, I'm tired, I don't want to spend the time. So we're going to just have my generic thoughts about these. It's going to be great. First of all, I want to talk about some statistics because I did write those down because I'm a nerd. First of all, we have 5 physical books and 5 audiobooks. I have not been that great in reading physical books in 2018. However, 5 books? Look at me go. So I read 10 books total. Then I read 3 classics. I read 1 nonfiction, 1 mystery, 2 YA, 2 fantasy, 1 historical fiction, 2 middle grade, 2 adult, and 1 poetry. I was on a roll for diverse genres here and age groups. So I was really happy with December. I was really happy with the way the year ended, and I met my goal of 185 books. It was originally 100 and then I kept on upping it. First of all, we have Catwoman. I need to do a review on this book, so I'm not going to talk that much about it. I love comic books. I love DC especially. Catwoman is an interesting character. I think that I have some issues with Sarah J. Maas's writing. I think that it is very I don't even know the word for it. Unrefined in many ways. I think that she often overuses words. The word eddied, which is such a beautiful word, has now been painful me to hear because of so many times I heard it in this book. I thought that the romance was totally unnecessary. They could have been platonic friends. It was clearly supplementing for a more very loved relationship in the comics, and I know that it made some die-hard fans of the comics, Margaret, quite unhappy that they did that, and I felt that their emotions kept on being underlined by the fact that she would use swear words rather than actually explain what their emotions is. But I just found that I kept on wanting them to be dived into emotional depth, and that just was not something that happened. God's Grave by Jay Kristoff. So, Jay Kristoff was an author I found in 2018 that I found I loved, and this book was kind of disappointment, I must admit. I didn't like where it went based on what happened in the first book. I thought the first book was really, really good. It follows this character of Mia, and she is wanting to be an assassin after her family is brutally killed by people that betrayed them. And they were a very political and noble family, and she's had to live in a less than noble environment ever since. But this book, it really just changed environments. It had this weird switching between times, and listening to an audiobook, I really had a hard time figuring out which time period it was. It didn't hold the magic the first one did. It didn't seem to have a drive as much, and there was scenes. It was definitely, I gave it 3 stars. It was not a bad book. I just didn't have the same magic that it did in the first book. I'm still really excited for Dark Dawn. I still think Jay Kristoff is an amazing author. I just think that this book had kind of middle book syndrome kind of thing. It didn't know what it was necessarily supposed to be. The end was really good. I like my bad girls staying bad too. I love character development, but it just, in some ways, it felt like she was changing into a person that I didn't recognize as well. The humor was still on point. It is still graphically sexual, which as an ace person is not my cup of tea. And I had The Battle of the Labyrinth by Rick Riordan. I gave this 5 stars. I definitely upped this rating. This is a book that has become better and better while reading it. The first time I read it, I didn't super love it, and then the more I read it, the more I have fallen in love with the characters and the story that it tells and the development it holds. I really loved how it became a nuanced look at many of the characters, and it shows them developing and growing older. And I love the question of what legacy means and what it means to do things in people's names, and just the stakes in this novel have always been things that I have delighted, and that we start seeing the end goal, and I love that. It is the story of Percy Jackson. It's the 4th book in the novel, so I obviously can't tell you the plot, but he is a son of a Greek god, and he is exploring his world and what has happened. I am reading this along with Read DA, Demigods Anonymous. I'm one of the hosts with Kenzie and Margaret, and they're delightful, and we'll be doing a live show at the end of January. It kind of got mixed up with Christmas time and everything like that. Then I have Flamecaster by Cinda Williams Chima. I'm going to be doing a review on this. I have like 5 freaking pages of notes. It is glorious. I love the series. It is about Ash, who happens to be the son of the queen of a queendom of the Fells, and his sister, who is the heir, has been killed, and then his father is killed in the beginning, and he is fueled by revenge, and I think it's thirsting for revenge is what the end of the book says. And it just was a very good book. It felt so good to be back in this world. And it's very interesting because I read Seven Realms first time in 2016, so close to 3 years ago, and I read it, all 4 books that were all over 500 pages in less than 1 week. That's how much I love the frickin' series. And being back after so long just felt really nice. It reminded me how much I need to reread the series because I feel like I was just all consuming it the last time. It is such a magical place. It has such a beautiful world building. It has great diversity and representation in the first series especially, and I just started the second one, and we're getting more of the clans back in there, which native representation is not, like, where is that ever? And it's just such a magical world, and I'm really excited to continue the series, and I really highly recommend picking up The Demon King. You will not regret it. Well, it is a little bit slower, so some people regret it, but like, stick with it. It is worth it. Then I have Stardust by Neil Gaiman. I have regrets that I filmed my top books of 2018 without this on it, because definitely a contender for my top 10. It was incredible, it was quirky, and it was so different from the movie. I just loved the ending so extraordinary. I have a lot of notes, and I have even more, but I write so much in this. It was lovely. I'm going to be doing a review of this too. I'm going to promise to do so many reviews. Hold me to it. I always get insecure about doing reviews, but I can't just talk about these books for short little amounts of time, so I'm going to be talking more about it. I'm really bad at holding things. The Book Thief by Markus Zusak. This was a delightful book. It is one that is narrated by Death and following World War II and this book thief. This is a book that I wanted to read for so long, and I finally got to it. It's been on my shelf for like 2 years now, embarrassing, and I really liked it. I thought that the beginning was so intriguing and beautiful, and I just wanted more of it and more of it. I thought that it was a little bit too much longer than I would have probably given it, but it was still widely worth it. I do really adore it. I loved how the story is. I think that I want to process it a little bit more, if that makes sense. I don't know, it's one of those books that I'm not sure how I'm going to end up feeling about it. I gave it 3 stars. It showed the brutality of Nazism, and yet the experience of living during that time. And having Death as a narrator was beautiful, so I'm not sure why I didn't completely love it, which is a reflection. For 2 stars, I have Sun by Lois Lowry. This completed the Giver Quartet for me. I read The Giver back in August of 2017, and it blew me away. It, for me, is primarily the story of being an alien to your own race, understanding emotions and having the awakening of humanity in a world that has become so flat and stale to emotions, and it is such a delightful read. The second book follows a character who is has a disability with her leg and has to use her kind of slightly magical abilities to redeem herself in that, and the third book is about another character that is found in that, and about a place that takes in people who are lost and betrayed by people in their lives. The last book also takes place in that series and follows back into the old world of this world in The Giver where people don't have expressions, and follows a birth mother who their children are separated immediately after birth, and her feelings about having emotions and stuff like that. It was good. I think that the first book was extraordinary. I think that the other three are mediocre, but I'm glad that I finished it all the less, and having the complete story was interesting. Then I have Civil Disobedience by Henry Thoreau. It is talking about people who say that they're abolitionists, say that they are for the rights of other people, and yet they don't do anything about it, which I feel is kind of the essence of our society. I know I am even guilty of this. There is so much change that I want to see in the world, so much injustice and hate that I want to redeem, and yet so often I sit by and don't do anything. And this is a call to arms, not an arms of violentness, but an arms to a peaceful protest of actually standing up against the cruelties and the injustices of our world, and doing it in a way that banding together, because when people come together, they can change the world. It's a very interesting 19th century look on a man representing and fighting for the rights of slaves and those who are oppressed in the US. And I have never heard about it before, and I would highly recommend it. It is not a Law and Peace of nonfiction. It is an essay, and I'm very interested in reading more of his works in the future. And last, and certainly not least, World War I poetry. This is an incredible-ness. I finished it 2 hours before midnight on the 31st. I needed to finish this. It is such a gorgeous text, really looking into the heart and soul of what it means to be someone who deals with so much grief and fighting for a cause that you might not want, but also fighting for. It has so many different perspectives, which is what I love. It even in the later half was looking at some of the women's thoughts on it and how it influences them, and I would highly recommend reading war poetry. I think that even from the views of those who are gung-ho for war, those who want to go and sign up and change the world, those who have a sense of duty, those who are pacifists, those who stand by and support, these offer such a delightful and real and potent viewpoint into their lives. Those are the books that I read in 2018's December, and I would highly recommend it. I have no idea what the frick I do with my hands all the time. I'm just like, this is how you be my booktuber. You just use your hands and like throw around books for a little while. This is the book I'm talking about. Anyways, tell me what your favorite book you read in December or lately, or the whatever book you want to rant. Please rant about books. I love rants. I love comments. Adore having subscribers and likes and all of that things, because, you know, puffs up my self-esteem. Anyways, have a delightful day and happy reading and writing, and I will see you next time.
There was a time when men were kind, when their voices were soft and their words inviting.